All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about the single most powerful tool a business has. And it's probably not what you're thinking. It's the story it tells itself. This one thing can build an empire or, yeah, it can lead to its complete collapse.
You know, it all comes down to this one simple, fundamental truth. We are, and I mean this literally, programmed by our narratives. The stories we tell ourselves don't just, describe who we are. They actually determine who we're going to become. They don't just set our path, they define our limits.
Now, this might sound a little bit philosophical, right? But it's not. In the world of business, this is a real, tangible force. It's the thing that dictates who wins and who loses. And you'd be surprised how often it leads to these just spectacular failures.
But here's where it gets really tricky. There's a dangerous paradox at play. What happens when that story, the one that made you successful, the one that got you to the top, what happens when that story becomes the very thing that holds you back? When it actually blinds you to what's coming next?
This leads us straight into a massive danger for any successful company. It's something we're going to call the identity trap. And trust me, it's as dangerous as it sounds.
So how can your biggest strength suddenly become your fatal flaw? Well, to really get this, let's look at a perfect example. A company that was once literally on top of the world, BlackBerry. Remember them? For a while there, they were the undisputed kings of the smartphone. See, BlackBerry told itself a very, very specific story. It was, we are a secure email and keyboard company. That was their identity. But the market? Well, the market was telling a completely different story, wasn't it? The world was screaming for powerful computers in their pockets, for apps, for touch screens. And just look at how fast it all fell apart. I mean, in 2007, they had almost half the market. By 2016, less than 1%. It's breathtaking, really. In less than a decade, a market leader just vanished. And that is what happens when the story you're telling yourself inside has absolutely nothing to do with the reality of what's happening outside.
They basically became experts at perfecting a product for a market that didn't exist anymore. They were playing yesterday's game. And they weren't the only ones, right? You think of companies like Kodak clinging to film while digital was exploding, or Yahoo stuck on being a portal while Google was eating the world. It's the same exact trap.
Okay, so how do you escape that trap? How does a company break free? Well, it takes a moment of just brutal honesty. It takes a true moment of reinvention.
And to see exactly how that works, let's look at another story. A failing video game company called Tiny Speck. Now, you probably haven't heard of them, but you've definitely heard of what they became. Slack. Yeah, that's Slack. One of the most successful business tools ever. But its origin story? It doesn't start with success. It starts with the death of a video game.
This was the story they told themselves. We're creative artists building immersive experiences. We're not, boring business software people. That was their whole identity, their passion. It was everything they were about. And it felt good. It felt right.
But here's the thing. That story nearly killed them. As their game was failing, they had to face this really hard truth. That beautiful story they loved so much, it was also blinding them. It was stopping them from seeing this massive, huge opportunity that was literally right under their noses the whole time.
This is what we call the moment of reinvention. It's that choice. Do you abandon a story you love, even if it's failing, and embrace a new one based on what's actually working? For them, it was a choice. Die with their beloved artistic story, or see themselves in a totally new light, all because of this simple little chat tool they'd built for themselves.
And that's exactly what they did. They rewrote their story. They said, wait a minute, maybe we're not failed game developers. Maybe we're communication experts. Maybe we're changing how teams work together. They let go of that creative artist story and grabbed onto a new one. And just like that, they went from failed game devs to revolutionaries in workplace communication. Think about that. Same people, same skills, but a completely different story.
So by rewriting their reality, by changing their narrative, they didn't just pivot their product. They unlocked a whole new future. And this pattern, this is a classic hallmark of the really visionary companies. Slack's pivot wasn't some kind of fluke. It was a masterclass in narrative strategy. And what's so cool is that once you see this pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. So many of the most successful companies we know today have made these kinds of narrative pivots.
I mean, look at this list. Netflix, they stopped telling themselves they were a DVD delivery service and started telling a much bigger story. We are a global entertainment studio.
Amazon wasn't just an online bookstore. They saw themselves as building the very infrastructure of commerce. Intel had to let go of its identity as a memory chip maker to become the microprocessor powerhouse. Shopify started as a snowboard store. They all changed their internal story, and that is what allowed them to see and grab opportunities that their competitors were completely blind to.
So what story will you tell? This whole thing brings the lesson right back home, doesn't it? It's a really personal and deeply strategic question, not just for leaders or big organizations, but for anyone trying to build something new.
Because the story you tell yourself, it's not just marketing. It's not some slogan you slap on a poster. It's the lens. It's the very lens through which you see the world. It dictates your strategy, your culture, the people you hire, and yeah, your ultimate potential for growth.
Your story about who you are literally determines what opportunities you can even see. If that story is too narrow, if it's too rigid, you can miss the single biggest opportunity of your company's life. You end up just like BlackBerry, becoming the world's best expert at a game that nobody is playing anymore.
So the crucial point here, the one big takeaway from all these stories, from BlackBerry to Slack, it's this.
Change the story, change everything. So the only question left to ask yourself is, what story will you choose to tell?